What's up, LEGO builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. I've spent a good chunk of the past 2 months building a bunch of clone and droid bases showcasing various functions and unique designs. But there's yet to be a serious clash between the two sides and their strongholds. So today I'm creating a massive showdown by building a clone and droid base and rolling out some of the best weapons and troops each army has to offer in a major battle to decide the fate of a vital, fuel-rich world. As if that wasn't exciting enough, you get to be the one who decides who wins. So if you're ready to see a Clone Wars fanboy in his absolute element, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. This is the biggest mock I've ever undertaken in a single video, so I'm going to need all 3 building tables, and even that might not be enough. I want to have a base at each end of the table with a big battlefield in between full of trenches and vehicles. And trust me, this may look like plenty of space, but the bases are going to need a lot of room. Now it's time to get that green. And you know what? Screw what everyone else says. I'm doing Gungans again. You've exceeded your Gungan content for the month? There may be those out there wondering, why does it always have to be green terrain, Coconut? Basically, every large build I do sits on a grassy hill or in some peaceful meadow. And it's not just for the obvious reason of me being obsessed with Naboo. Green is just such a great natural color that makes sense as terrain and adds some much needed color contrast to the gray blobs I'm usually building. Because this mock is so big, I gently enlisted the help of some of my brothers to build the terrain. I started them out by building the middle portion that has dark tan trenches and open areas where the battle will take place. After that was done, we turned our attention to the clone side of things. I don't want both bases to look the same, so this one's going to be built into a large hill, which will act as a natural defense against heavy weaponry. I told them not to worry about how it looks since everything will be covered up in grass. Since is it even a coconut mock at this point without grass or dark tan rockwork? They did a killer job on the hill, and now I can turn it into a base. The most important thing to me is the doorway, since this one needs to actually work, unlike most of my bases, so a certain wheeled machine can get out and hopefully back in if it's still running. I decided to give this the Lord of the Rings treatment and build 2 giant doors that will swing outward. This is realistically my only option since a laser gate is kind of the droids thing now, and I can't build sliding doors that open into the side of the hill. Plus now I can position the gate to lean back at an angle, which is going to look really cool and match the rest of the hill to make the base even more secure. I used some beefy 2x2 ball joints to get the right range of motion, and now I need to build the doorway to secure them in place. I want this front part to be taller than the hill so I can run some walls across the top to meet up with the gate and give the clone artillery up there some extra protection. Once the gate's in place, I can build the rest of the base. To start, I need to cover up the back side of the hill since I'm building a futuristic sci-fi base and dirt walls just aren't the vibe. I was really excited to build this one because I've done lots of bases built into hills, but it's always just the entrance. So now I actually get to do the interior. I know this might look kind of simple and hastily thrown together, and well, it definitely is, but once you see the story I'm cooking up, it might make a little bit more sense. For now, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. This stronghold has only one purpose, pumping out clones and vehicles to fight droids. So on one side of the base is going to be a medical bay with some back-to tanks. I was going to rebuild these cool rounded ones from back in the day, but sadly couldn't find those blue pieces I had anywhere, so I had to build some blocky tanks with these trans light blue pillars, and the result honestly isn't too bad. I built 2 decent sized back-to tanks and added some controls so the troops can take a breather, get patched up, and sent back out to keep spreading that democracy. Yeehaw! On the other side of the base is the classic briefing area and a large hollow table where a bunch of heavy hitters are monitoring the battle. Great fighters and living legends and Mr. Diplomat. Any leftover space can always be filled up with crates and canisters, the true backbone of any clone base mock. The base is done, but it's still undefended. I was originally going to have some much larger artillery guns on movable platforms, but like I alluded to at the beginning of the video, there just ended up not being enough space for that. I also added some rocket launcher units and regular clones to guard against infantry attacks that get under the range of the bigger guns. Just like that, the base is armed and ready to go, but that's just one aspect of this offensive campaign. I need to build some frontline defenses. I love my projectiles, so I had my brothers add a couple foxholes behind the trenches, which I turned into a couple mortar emplacements. In the actual trench, I have a custom E-web cannon to lay down some suppressive fire as clones charge up to the trench and take cover as they fire on the enemy. I added an officer to keep things organized and a squad of reinforcements charging up from behind, protecting a flame tank. The Republic is locked and loaded, but the droid side of things needs some work. Having done a few different types of droid bases over the past few weeks, I had multiple options to choose from, but only one really made sense, and that was the classic old rectangle. It's simple, quick to assemble, and can field a lot more troops and vehicles than any of the others, and conveniently I still happen to have that other one mostly built.
Can't keep getting away with it!
My brother laid out a foundation where the walls would sit so I would know how big it is and I could make sure all the various tanks could fit through the door. At this point I realized I just didn't have enough space to properly fit another base into this model. So I added 3 32 by 32 base plates for some extra breathing room in the back and tiled off the green ones, since the only green I want to see this base are my lovely alien figs. I affixed the walls to the foundation and inwardly thanked Ethan of 3 weeks ago, who decided to take the time to build some solid looking walls that I could keep milking for content. We've already established that droids don't need much of an interior, but I'm adding 3 elevator shafts that go down to a bunch of storage pods put into the ground to hold squads of deactivated droids. And I've developed a little soft spot for these guys, so I added a little oil bar for the droids to enjoy some refreshments. And speaking of the greedy cyborg, it wouldn't be a Separatist mock without Tambor in the process of loading up his precious treasures and hightailing it out of there. The droids are getting pretty tired of being manhandled by the clones, so I added some free weights and a bench press so these clankers can put on some much needed mass and start looking more like Kit Fisto. I guess I should add something practical as well, so here's a couple tanks. The old security droids have proven pretty ineffective at guarding bases, so now Neimoidian guards are on patrol. And even though I'm reusing the overall design for this mock, I wanted to add something new. A roof. Nothing too fancy, just a large platform overlooking the battle so the Separatist leaders can get a bird's eye view of the battlefield. It's a bit risky being exposed like this, so I added some jetpack droids to whisk them to safety if need be. Republic gunships have overwhelmed many a droid base, so I added some anti-air turrets and some wicked looking missiles that can knock anything short of a Venator out of the sky. Favoring quantity over quality as usual, the droid infantry almost doubles that of the clones, and they have just about every type of unit out there, from rocket wielding B2s to roller droids, and zipping around above them are steps capable of zipping past Republic defenses, doubling back to attack from behind. The stage is set, and now it's time to see why this epic showdown came to be. War has come to Arquitus. The fuel-rich backwater world was recently discovered by Separatist scouts whose reports were captured by Republic recon, which resulted in a race to the planet. The two sides are now facing off across a trench-lined battlefield as they struggle to gain a foothold and secure that liquid gold. The Republic has sent some of their best leaders and troops, and while they arrived after the Seps, were still able to quickly dig into a large hill and create a simple base embedded in the terrain that can guard against substantial artillery barrages. The opening is guarded by a massive gate which can unleash a mighty juggernaut to hopefully crush the droid lines under its wings. The clones have dug into a long trench supported by mortar emplacements as they throw in everything they've got, trying to break the droid lines and destroy their base. It may seem like the clones have it in the bag, but the Seps got here first and put in a much bigger base with better defenses ready to shred any incoming gunships, while squads of battle droids are lifted up from subterranean storage units to join the fight. To combat the flame tank, the AATs are being deployed, and while the clones are tough, a new type of battle droid has arrived, and now the clones aren't the only ones throwing hands. Normally the Seppi leader's first move is to peace out when any serious fighting happens, but they're sticking around this time to make sure that fuel is secure. Well, most of them. The Republic has thrown a turbo tank into the fray, but the droids have an answer. This massive MTT is basically a hovering battering ram, and while this base may be immune to artillery fire, battering rams are another issue. Both sides know as long as the enemy base stands, fresh troops and vehicles will keep pouring into the front lines, so elite teams have been sent to try and disable the other base. Both sides are evenly matched, so it's up to you to decide. Make sure to let me know in the comments which army you think will take the victory. I was thinking the challenge behind this video would be building the two large bases quickly, but it actually turned out to be having enough space. I had this grand vision in my head of two epic bases facing off, but had to figure out how to shrink that down onto these tables without everything looking like that one dude from Ant-Man. I think the idea behind the clone base was great, but the execution was a little lacking. It's basically a giant door on a hill, and the side walls need more work. At least the droid base fared better, but I wasn't starting from scratch like I was with the clone base. I want to give a huge thank you to my brothers for helping. This video would not have happened without their efforts. I'm starting to feel some serious mock challenge burnout with all these fast-paced simple build videos, but luckily my next large-scale mock series is starting next Sunday. I get to slow things down and focus more on detail-oriented building as I make an Imperial base on Minban. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this clone and droid base showdown, and until next time, happy building.